Zachary grew up and was raised solely by his dad, Damian, whom he watched struggle to get to where he is now. The two of them were more like best friends and would do anything to protect each other. Zach never went against Damian, and Damian always supported Zach and was there for him. Damian was the only child of his financially struggling parents. Despite their hardships, his parents always smiled and acted like everything was fine, providing whatever Damian needed, even if it meant going without food themselves. Damian knew his parents were not okay and never wanted to ask them for anything. In high school, Damian had a girlfriend named Juniper. They initially became close because they both related with having struggling parents, and eventually started dating. In their second year, Juniper found out she was pregnant. She wanted to get rid of the pregnancy without telling Damian, but at 5 months along, it was too risky. Devastated and not knowing what to do, she finally told Damian. Damian wanted to be excited, but couldn't. He knew he was young and couldn't provide for the child, as his parents were barely managing to support him. He didn't want an innocent child to face such hardships. Still, he put on a smile and comforted Juniper, assuring her they would try their best to raise the baby together. When Damian told his parents the news, they were disappointed at first, but then promised to support him. Juniper said her parents were supportive too, but she never let Damian meet them and moved in with Damian and his parents until it was time for the baby to be born. Both Damian and Juniper took a break from school, and Damian started doing odd jobs to save and support the baby. When Juniper was rushed to the hospital in labor, Damian wanted to contact her parents, but didn't have any way to reach them, and they didn't show up. He couldn't ask Juniper because she was in so much pain, so he stayed by her side, comforting her. When the baby arrived, all of Damian's worries vanished as he held his son in his arms, just feeling happy. He noticed that Juniper didn't seem very happy, but assumed it was due to the pain she had just endured. The next day, Damian's parents were at home making some healthy food for Juniper, while Damian was at the payment office negotiating to pay the bills in installments, and Juniper was in her ward with their baby boy Zachary. When Damian returned to the ward, only Zachary was there, crying loudly, with no sign of Juniper. He found a letter on the bed that simply said, "Goodbye," with no other explanation. Damian couldn't even process what was going on because Zach just kept crying loudly. He called some nurses for help and then searched everywhere for Juniper, but she was nowhere to be found. Her phone number was no longer available, and since she had never let him near her house, he didn't know where she lived. All he could do was wait. Days turned into weeks, and Juniper never showed up. With his parents' support, Damian worked multiple jobs while trying to be active in Zach's life. He noticed that his parents looked more tired than usual every day. They had to work and stay up at night to care for Zach, who cried loudly every night for no reason. Feeling bad for burdening them, Damian decided to move out and take care of Zach alone. With his little savings, he moved to another city with Zach when his parents weren't home and rented a shabby little house. He continued to work multiple jobs day and night, using almost all of his salary to put Zach in school and pay for a nanny. Despite his busy life, he made sure to not miss any important event in Zach's life. Working for many places made Damian interested in owning his own business. One day, he pitched a business idea to a big business owner who frequented the cafe where Damian worked. The man loved the idea and immediately agreed to invest in it. After a year, the business had flourished, and money was flowing in. Damian no longer needed to juggle multiple jobs, and Zach could live comfortably and enjoy things like other kids. When Zach was 14, Damian decided to go to college. Although he didn't need to, he wanted to fulfill his longtime dream of being a college graduate because back then it seemed impossible due to his parents' finances, but now he can afford to. He struggled with his studies and fitting in socially, feeling older than his course mates, until he met Harrison. Harrison didn't care about Damian's age and treated him like an old friend. With Harrison's help, Damian graduated college, and they grew very close, like brothers. Harry and Zach always bickered whenever they met, especially because Zach always called him uncle, even though Harry always says he isn't that old. When Harry and Damian graduated, they celebrated at Damian's house. It had been almost a year since Harry came to Damian's house. He scanned around for Zach, but Damian told him he was still at school. Harry sighed with relief and relaxed. Eventually, Zach returned from school. The moment he saw Harry, he felt something stir in his chest. Although it had been just almost a year since he saw Harry, Harry now seemed a bit different to him. He couldn't explain it, but now he was seeing Harry in a different way. Zach approached Harry and his dad. He greeted Damian, then greeted Harrison. "Hey Harry." For a second, Harry didn't respond because he was used to Zach calling him uncle. His eyes widened in surprise when he realized, and he asked, "What did you just call me?" Zach replied, "Harry, isn't that your name?" Harry said, "You didn't call me uncle today. What side of the bed did you sleep on? Keep sleeping on that side." Damian then asked, "Did something happen today that put you in a good mood?" Zach smiled and said, "Nothing happened," before heading to his room. Harry and Damian exchanged confused and surprised glances. In the following days, Harry frequently visited the house, since he was now business partners with Damian, and they mostly worked from home. Zach, who had developed a crush on Harry, would rush home from school just to see him. He would sit, pretending to study, and secretly watch Harry while he worked. With finals approaching, one day, while Zach was studying, Harry said, "If you don't understand anything, you can ask me." Damian interjected, "I don't think he'll need your help. He's literally a genius." Harry replied, "Oh, I see he didn't take after you." Damian made a fist as if to punch Harry, and Zach said, "I need help," pointing to a random question in his textbook and claiming he didn't understand. Damian gave Zach a suspicious look, but went back to work, while Harry pulled up a chair to sit next to him. As Harry intensely focused on the question, Zach smiled softly while watching him. Noticing Zach's gaze from the corner of his eye, Harry remarked, "The question isn't on my face, is it?" Zach pretended to focus on the book while secretly staring and shifting his chair to be more closer to Harry. After reading the question repeatedly, Harry rubbed his neck, looking embarrassed, and said, "I think what you're learning now is different from what we learned back then. You should ask your friends." He patted Zach's back and quickly left. Zach smirked as he watched Harry walk away. Zach graduated, and both his dad and Harry attended, proud of him. Zach thought his feelings for Harry was just a little crush that will pass away, but as time went on, those feelings only grew stronger. Now that Zach was home, waiting to start college, he had plenty of time to see and get close to Harry, who worked from home with his dad and rarely went to the main office. Zach was always around Harry, trying to make him notice him, but Harry just treated Zach like a little brother. One day, Harry left for a business trip alone. When Zach found out, he asked Damian where Harry had gone. Damian told him it was just to a nearby city, where Zach's grandparents also lived. Damian had gone back to his parents and apologized for leaving without telling them. He bought a house for them in a nearby city where they wanted to live. Zach told his father he wanted to visit his grandparents. Damian asked why suddenly, and Zach replied that he missed them and wanted to see them before his new semester began. Deep down, he knew he was going because of Harry. Zach left the moment his father granted him permission to go. He arrived at night and rested after his grandparents excitedly welcomed him, and he spent some time with them. The next morning, Zach went to the hotel where Harry was staying. He didn't want Harry to think he was there because of him, so he acted as if he was waiting for someone at the hotel lobby when he saw Harry approaching. Harry noticed Zach and walked over asking, "How are you here?" Zach replied, "I came here to visit my grandparents." Harry then replied, "Oh yeah, and why are you here exactly?" pointing to the hotel. Zach quickly made up a lie, "I came here to see a friend, but it seems she's not coming." Harry asked with a smirk, "Your girlfriend?" Zach quickly replied, "No, just a friend." Harry said, "Okay, I have to leave now for an important business meeting. I hope your friend doesn't stand you up." Zach gave an awkward smile, "I hope so too." Harry left, and Zach sat, waiting for Harry to return. After a while of waiting, almost falling asleep, Harry returned, tapping Zach on the shoulder when he saw him dozing off while passing. Zach got startled for a moment, then saw it was Harry. Zach put on a sad face, looking like he had been stood up. When Harry asked, Did your friend not come? Zach nodded. Harry patted his back, saying, Don't think too much of it. Maybe something important came up. I'm sure she'll call you. Zach pretended to be upset, nodding. Harry offered to drive Zach home to his grandparents' house, but Zach quickly held his stomach and said he was hungry and wanted to eat first. Even though he had already stuffed his stomach with a big piece of cake and 3 big glasses of chocolate milkshake. Harry took him to a restaurant in the hotel and told him to order whatever he wanted. Zach ordered a lot of food, hoping it would come slowly, giving him more time with Harry. He regretted it when all the food arrived. Harry kept filling Zach's plate, peeling shrimp Zach didn't even remember ordering and barely eating himself. Zach's heart fluttered when Harry came close and wiped sauce from his lips with his thumb. Although he knew Harry didn't mean anything by it since it was something his dad liked to do, and Harry probably learned it from him, Zach's weak heart couldn't help but flutter. After trying to eat everything Harry put on his plate, Zach began to feel sick in the stomach and wanting to throw up. He quickly made his way to a washroom, and Harry followed, worried. Zach threw up everything he had eaten, and Harry stayed by his side, gently tapping his back. Zach was embarrassed of Harry seeing him throw up, but Harry wouldn't leave his side. Harry checked Zach's forehead for fever but his temperature normal. He offered to drive Zach home to rest, and Zach couldn't think of a reason to refuse. Disappointed, Zach followed Harry outside, only to see it was raining heavily. Zach's face brightened, seeing it was raining, as he knew Harry never drives while it's raining, especially this heavily. Harry asked if Zach would be okay if he called a cab, to which Zach replied, I think I'll wait until the rain stops. Harry agreed, saying, Okay, then you can wait in my room. I'll drive you home when the rain stops. Zach nodded, secretly smiling. In the room, Zach just sat while Harry busily worked on his laptop. As the rain continued to pour, Harry paused his work to order some hot porridge for Zach, since he literally threw up every single food in his stomach. Time passed, and it grew very late. It seemed the rain was on Zach's side and wouldn't stop pouring. Zach asked Harry if he could stay the night, and Harry thought for a while before agreeing and making him call his grandparents for them to know his whereabouts. Zach awkwardly laid straight in the bed, waiting for Harry to come out of the shower. He thought Harry was going to come out with his bare chest and only a towel wrapped around his waist. Harry came out of the shower fully dressed in pajamas and went straight to the bed. As Harry climbed onto the bed, Zach, surprised and blushing, asked, Are you also sleeping on the bed? Harry replied, Where else did you think I was going to sleep? Zach didn't answer, and Harry continued, I have a meeting early in the morning and need to sleep. You should also sleep, because I'll be dropping you off before heading to the meeting, then closed his eyes. Zach stared at Harry's face, seeing him this up close for the first time. He traced an invisible path from Harry's eyelashes to his eyes and nose bridge with his finger. When his gaze and finger reached Harry's lips, Zach found himself biting his own lips and swallowing hard. He quickly turned to face the other side, tightly shutting his eyes and forcing himself to sleep. The next day, Harry drove Zach back to his grandparents' house. Harry spent a week on his business trip, and during the week, Zach found a way to spend some time with him, every day. Meanwhile, Damian was interviewing candidates for a personal assistant. All the applicants lacked the practical skills Damian needed, except one, Andre. Andre was weird. He was clumsy, timid, and spoke almost inaudibly. Even though Andre wasn't fit for a personal assistant position typically requiring being confident and articulate, but he was the opposite. Damian hired him, believing he had potential. Andre was fast and serious about every job he was given by Damian and was never caught slacking off. He was always quiet and never spoke unless spoken to, and he always answered timidly. When Harry and Zach returned after a week, Harry said Damian had hired a personal assistant. You hired a personal assistant and didn't hire one for me? He asked. Damian replied, You don't need a personal assistant. Zach jumped in, turning to Harry, I can be your personal assistant. Both Damian and Harry responded simultaneously. No, Harry added, you have school to focus on. Zach persisted, I can be your personal assistant on days I don't have school. Harry replied, still no. Damian then asked, Have you already started packing for school? Zach shook his head, and Damian said, You should start now. Andre will help you. Zach noticed how nervous Andre looked and tried to make small talk to help him feel more comfortable, which made Andre loosen up a bit. The first semester of college for freshmen was packed with activities, leaving Zach with no free days to go home, even though he was in another city not far from home. After almost a week without seeing Harry, Zach was already missing him. He video called Harry, who answered almost immediately. Zach's face lit up seeing Harry. "Why are you video calling me?" Harry asked. "I just wanted to see your face and hear your voice," Zach replied, knowing Harry wouldn't think much of it because he was as dense as a brick. "Harry, what do you want to do with my face and voice?" Just then, Damian appeared on the screen and asked, "Why are you calling him and not me, your dad?" Zach quickly replied, I was going to call you after." Harry handed the phone to Damian, leaving Zach to talk with his father. But it wasn't Damian Zach wanted to talk to. Before sleeping, he sent Harry a goodnight text, and Harry replied with a goodnight sticker. In the following days, Zach and Harry continued texting, mostly using stickers and GIFs. Before Zach would call Harry, he would ask Andre if Harry was at home with his dad or not, because his dad will definitely take over the call. Zach also texted with Andre, who had become his friend. Zach felt comfortable talking to Andre and sharing things he couldn't tell others, including his feelings for Harry. He liked that Andre listened, even when he was just rambling. Zach preferred video calling Harry, often staring longingly at him through the screen after they had spoken and had nothing more to say. He wouldn't let Harry hang up. Harry never questioned why Zach always called and texted him, and never caught on to Zach's flirtations. At home, Damian was thinking of ways to help Andre stop being socially awkward. One night, he was waiting for a document he had asked Andre to type. Andre was never late with submitting tasks, but this time he was. Damian went to Andre's work desk to check what was going on and found Andre asleep at his computer, mid-typing the document. This was the first time Damian had seen Andre slacking off at work, and thought he must be really tired. Silently, Damian went over to finish the document himself, without waking Andre. As he typed, Andre grabbed his arm and rested his head on it. Damian stood there, unsure of what to do, then used his other hand to continue typing as quietly as possible. When he was done, he tried to carefully move his arm from Andre's grasp, but just then, Andre opened his eyes. He shot up, quickly and repeatedly, apologizing when he realized he had been sleeping and grabbing Damian's arm. It was the loudest Damian had ever heard Andre speak. Damian made Andre stop apologizing and told him it was normal to slack off sometimes. He asked if Andre was doing anything that was keeping him awake at night. Andre pursed his lips, fidgeting with his hands, and replied in his usual almost inaudible voice, I stayed up all night to buy a merch. It was limited edition. Damian laughed, looking at Andre in amusement, and said, "That's okay, I understand." Andre apologized again for sleeping during work, but Damian told him he didn't want to hear any more apologies. Damian began helping Andre become more confident in front of people. He had Andre answer work calls, practice presentations, and run errands that required communicating with people. Andre was finding it hard in the beginning, but started getting better than before even though he was still struggling. Andre's voice became more audible, and he was less awkward. There was a party that Damian had to attend and had to bring a +1. He decided to take Andre as his +1. At the party they will have to slow dance, but Andre didn't know how to. Damian decided to teach him how to. Initially, Andre kept stepping on Damian's feet and tripping, but Damian patiently taught him. After days of practice, Andre got the hang of it. The night before the party, they practiced one last time. As they danced, they stared into each other's eyes, and Andre felt his heart racing, captivated by Damian's gaze. He tripped, but Damian caught him before he fell. He apologized, and Damian said it was okay. On the night of the party, Harry's +1 was a woman Andre didn't recognize. On the dance floor, Andre avoided eye contact with Damian, focusing instead on Harry and his partner, planning to tell Zach about it later. When Andre told Zach about Harry's +1, Zach immediately called Harry to ask who she was. Harry first asked how he knew, then answered that she was just a business partner. Zach smiled and breathed a sigh of relief. He was already thinking of leaving school and going straight to Harry's house to confess his feelings to him, even though he wasn't sure if Harry felt the same. Andre could no longer maintain eye contact with Damian. He focused on other things whenever Damian spoke to him, avoiding his gaze. Damian noticed and asked if he was uncomfortable with him. Andre quickly shook his head and Damian said, "Then look at me." Andre could only manage a brief glance before looking away. Damian moved closer, gently holding Andre's chin to make him look. Andre's heart stopped as he stared at Damian's face. Noticing an ink stain on the corner of Andre's lip, Damian wiped it with his thumb, chuckling, "Were you drinking the ink?" Andre didn't hear anything after Damian's thumb touched his lip. His eyes widened in shock. Damian noticed Andre's reaction and said, "Oh, sorry, it's kind of a habit." Andre wasn't responding, so Damian asked, "Are you okay?" Andre shook his head, then quickly nodded when he realized. Damian smiled and walked away. Zach had his bags packed the day he finished his last exam before vacation. Instead of going home, he went straight to Harry's house, knowing from Andre that Harry wasn't at work. He wasn't sure if Harry was at home or somewhere else, but he still went. When Harry opened the door, looking surprised, Zach threw himself onto Harry, hugging him tightly and resting his head on Harry's chest. "I missed you." Harry pulled him off and asked, surprised, "Why are you here?" Zach hugged him again, saying, "Just allow me to hug you for a minute. You can ask your questions later." Harry patted Zach's head as Zach hugged him. "Did you miss me?" Zach asked. Harry thought for a moment before replying, "I'm not sure. I guess I do miss having you around. The house was quite dull without you. I know your dad misses you a lot." Zach rolled his eyes and said, "I was only asking about you." Harry then asked, "Why didn't you go straight home?" Zach sighed, "I knew you were dense, but I didn't know it was this bad." Harry looked confused. "What does that mean?" "Do you really have no clue?" Zach asked. "I don't know what you're talking about," Harry replied. Zach took a deep breath, smiled, and said, "See you tomorrow, I guess," then left. At home, Damian excitedly hugged Zach and asked all about his experience at school and living in an unfamiliar city. Zach told him everything. He had also missed his dad and their father and son talks and gossips. Within just a few days of being home, Zach noticed something going on between his dad and Andre. He asked Andre, "What's going on between you and my dad?" Andre replied, "Nothing." Zach said, "I see you steal glances at him. You like him, don't you?" Andre stuttered, "I don't." Zach then said, "Swear you don't have any feelings for him." Andre went silent, fidgeting with his fingers. Zach continued, "Ever since I can remember, I've never seen my dad interested in anyone. It's always work and me. I want him to find someone to love and someone who loves him, and I'd really be happy if he had someone like you by his side." Andre asked, "Do you think he'd like someone like me?" Zach replied, "Yes. Well, I mean, I've never seen him give anyone attention like he gives you." Andre skeptically said, "I don't know." Zach sighed, "At least there is hope with my dad, unlike someone. I don't think he's ever going to think of me as anything more than a little brother. He doesn't even know when I'm flirting with him." Andre replied, "Maybe you should try and make him jealous? If he does give some kind of reaction, then it'll mean he has some feelings for you. He just doesn't know it yet." Zach looked at Andre amazed and said, "That's a good idea. I honestly didn't expect this from you." Andre mumbled, "Me too." Andre asked Zach how he was going to go about trying to make Harry jealous. Zach stared at Andre with a mischievous smile. Zach made Andre help him with trying to make Harry jealous. Andre said he didn't know how to flirt, and Zach told him to just play along with him. The two started flirting around in the house, with Zach always around Andre while he was working and flirting with him in front of Harry and Damian. Harry never gave any reaction of being even a little bit jealous, but Damian, on the other hand, always shot them looks that could kill. Zach felt like giving up because Harry didn't even seem like he cared. One day, Damian asked Zach, "Is there anything going on between you and Andre?" Zach smirked and asked, "What do you think is going on between us?" Damian replied, "I don't know, that's why I'm asking." Zach replied, What if there is something going on between us? Damian said, well, he is a great guy, so if you like him then, cool. Zach chuckled and said, there is nothing going on between us, don't worry. I'm not taking him away from you. Damian asked, what do you mean? Zach replied, I know you like him. We never keep anything from each other, so be honest with me. You like him, don't you? Damian paused for a moment, then replied, I don't know. I don't remember what it feels like to romantically like someone. I honestly don't know the kind of feeling I have for him. Zach said, you'll know if you really like him. Just open your heart and give yourself a chance. Damian asked, will you really be okay if I have a relationship with him, or any other person? Zach replied, how old am I? Of course, as long as you like that person and they are good to you. Damian smiled and hugged Zach. Zach decided to be straightforward with Harry. Before going back to school, he decided to tell him about his feelings. Zach just blurted out to Harry, I like you. Harry replied, I like you too. Everyone likes you. Zach sighed heavily and pulled Harry by his collar, kissing him on the lips. Harry didn't resist. He was just frozen in shock as Zach's lips pressed against his. Zach pulled back from the kiss and repeated, I like you. Harry just stood there. Oh, wow, okay. Zach was perplexed and dejected. Okay, don't you have anything else to say? Harry replied, I'm just surprised. Zach said, I've been trying to get you to notice that I like you for the longest time, but you never did. Now I really want to know if there is any chance you have even just a tiny bit of feelings for me. Harry couldn't answer no, but he couldn't answer yes either. He had never thought of Zach in that way. They had both gotten close these past months, and he enjoyed Zach's company and felt good around him, but he never really thought he might like him in a romantic way. He couldn't bring himself to answer because he had no answer. Zach pressed, please tell me. You can be brutally honest. I'll take it. Harry tried to change the subject. When are you going back to school? Zach's face dropped as he said, I'll take that as a no. I should have known that I had no chance. Maybe I would have if we met as strangers. Then you wouldn't only see me as a younger brother. I think it's time for me to move on. Harry didn't like that Zach interpreted that as a no, but he didn't correct him either. Zach returned to school and stopped texting or calling Harry like he used to. Harry constantly checked his phone, expecting a message or call from Zach. Even when Zach called his dad and Harry was around, he only spoke to Andre and his dad. Every notification Harry received, he hoped it was from Zach, but it never was. He couldn't bring himself to text first either, not wanting to give Zach false hope while he was still unsure of his own feelings. Damian was resting on a couch with his eyes closed when Andre went looking for him and saw him, thinking he was asleep. Andre squatted beside Damian, staring at him, then at his lips. He moved closer as if to kiss him, but then stopped. Just then, Damian opened his eyes. He pulled Andre onto the couch next to him and kissed him. Andre kissed back without hesitation. It was a deep, longing kiss, gentle but fierce. They parted their lips, both breathing heavily. Damian said, I'm too old to be beating around the bush. I love you. Andre pulled Damian into another kiss. After they parted, Andre said, me too. Damian then asked, do I still have to ask you to be my boyfriend? Andre replied, I guess we can skip that part. Damian smiled, saying, okay, and the two continued kissing again. Not having Zach around anymore made Harry realize he did like him. He hadn't known before because he was used to always having him around and treating him like a younger brother. Andre told Zach how Harry always looked dejected these days. Zach didn't want to get his hopes up, thinking Harry might be like that because he felt bad for rejecting him. Harry's mind was always filled with Zach. He missed him, and Damian wasn't making the situation any better by flaunting his relationship with Andre. The two couldn't get enough of each other. Damian replied sarcastically, which Zach? Do you know any Zach that I don't know? Harry answered, Zachary, your son. Damian gave a sneering smile, nodding his head and rolling up his sleeves, preparing his fist for a punch. Harry asked, you're not going to punch me, are you? Damian replied calmly with a sarcastic smile, no, absolutely not. So, you were saying? Harry continued, I think I like him, but Damian cut in, you think? Harry corrected, I like him. I just realized that, but it's too late. It seems he has moved on. He doesn't even want to talk to me. Damian asked, have you tried talking to him? Harry replied, well, we haven't spoken since the day I kind of rejected him. Damian asked incredulously, you rejected him? Harry explained, I was just surprised at the moment when he said he liked me. Damian asked, you were surprised? Wasn't it obvious to you all along? Even I could tell. Harry asked, really? Damian said, I wish I could punch you right now. You broke his heart. I don't even want you dating him because you're dumb, but he likes you, so I have to accept that. Harry then said, I don't think you have to worry about me dating him. He doesn't want me anymore. Damian sighed, remarking, should I be glad about that or not? Just try talking to him again. Harry asked, should I? Damian replied, I still think you deserve a punch, then walked away, shaking his head. Harry tried texting Zach, but deleted every message he typed, not sending any of them. In the end, he gave up, not knowing exactly what to say. Another vacation came, and Zach returned home. He greeted everyone with a smile and gave them souvenirs he had bought, even giving one to Harry. Damian and Andre exchanged glances, silently urging Harry to say something, but he just stared at Zach. The atmosphere was filled with awkward tension. In the following days, Zach didn't avoid Harry, but spoke to him normally, although not as enthusiastically as he used to. Zach also witnessed Damian and Andre's public displays of affection. They didn't care who was around. One day, Zach was returning home from visiting a friend. The sight that met him when he opened the door was Damian and Andre kissing on the couch. He immediately closed the door, and at that moment, Harry also appeared. Zach told him, you might not want to enter now, and Harry remarked, those two again? Zach nodded. They stood silently for a moment before Harry broke the silence. I'm sorry, for last time, Harry said. Zach replied, it's okay. You don't have to like me back just because I like you. Harry quickly said, no, I'm sorry for being late and realizing my feelings, and being dumb for not noticing you earlier. Zach asked, are you saying this because you feel bad? Harry replied, no, not at all. Zach then said, I did try moving on, but it didn't work. I wanted to pretend I had moved on. I don't want to have any hopes now. Harry said, I really mean it. I do like you, not just a little bit, but a lot. He moved closer to Zach. Zach gave Harry a quick peck on the lips, then stared at him, waiting for a reaction. Harry cupped Zach's cheek and pulled him into a proper kiss. Zach was surprised and pulled out of the kiss. He asked, are you sure about this? Harry replied softly, yes, absolutely. They both leaned in, staring at each other's lips, then kissed again. Zach wrapped his arms around Harry's waist, closing every space between them while they kissed passionately. Harry asked Zach to be his boyfriend. Zach wanted to play hard to get because of what he went through to get Harry to notice him, and wanted Harry to go through the same, but he couldn't. He folded and gave in that very moment. Damian warned he would break every bone in Harry's body if he ever broke his boy's heart, and Harry assured him that day would never come. Zach noticed a woman frequently coming around their house, looking in. He told Damian about it, and they kept watch for when she would come next. On the day she came around again, Damian and Harry quickly went out to confront her. Damian was stunned the moment he set his eyes on the woman. It was Juniper, dressed in fancy clothes, looking like she had been living well. Harry noticed his dad's reaction and asked if he knew her. Juniper approached Zach, taking his hand and said, you've grown really well. Zach withdrew his hand, asking who she was. Damian was filled with a mix of emotions, anger, confusion. He wanted to ask so many questions but didn't even know where to start. Juniper turned to Damian, saying, he looks exactly like you. It looks like you raised him well. Damian said, I see you are alive and looking at you. It seems you have been living well, forgetting you have a son somewhere. Why are you back now? Zach stared at Juniper in shock when he heard the word son. Juniper replied, don't worry, I'm not here to take him away or anything. I just wanted to see how he was doing, and I thought you deserved an explanation for why I suddenly disappeared. Damian replied, "Before, I always thought of possible reasons why you left and wanted an explanation, but now I don't care anymore. I won't forbid Zachary from having a relationship with you. He is old enough to choose whether he wants to or not. I don't really care for anything you have to say." He then left back to the house, leaving Zach alone with her. Zach asked, "Are you my mom?" Juniper replied, "Yes. I see your dad never told you about me." Zach replied, "No, I never asked. I was just happy having just him, and he was enough for me." Juniper apologized for leaving him. She wanted to tell him the reason she left, but Zach stopped her, saying it doesn't matter anymore and that she's just a stranger he is related to by blood. Zach walked away, leaving Juniper alone, looking disappointed. Zach always imagined what it would feel like meeting his mom, but now that he had met her, he felt nothing. She just felt like a stranger. Juniper left because before finding out she was pregnant, she was already in a relationship with a guy whom his parents made her date and was from a wealthy family. Her parents wanted her to abort the baby no matter the risk, which was why she left home until she put to bed. She left to go another country with the guy. They both married after they finished schooling and they now have their own kids. She didn't regret leaving with a wealthy guy, but she was sad about leaving her baby. She always thought of him, but never even tried reaching out until she saw him one day at his school and immediately recognized him because he looked a lot like Damian, and since then had been watching him from afar. When Zach went in, he hugged his dad and told him he was just enough for him and that he loved him. Damian replied, "I love you too," hugging his son back. Damian and Andre's relationship continued to grow strong. Andre had become a second dad and close friend to Zach. He also had Harry, who made sure Zach knew every day that he loved him more than anything in the world.